Good morning, everyone. Today we will be learning about the SpaceX and Tesla CEO, Mr. Elon Musk. Mr. Musk, could you tell us some basic information about yourself?
Alright, well, my name is Elon Musk. I'm an industrial designer, a technology entrepreneur, and a philanthropist. I was born in Pretoria in South Africa in 1971. I lived there for basically my entire life, and then when I was 17, I moved to Canada, and then later I came here to the United States. My father is Elon Musk, who's an engineer, and my mother, May Musk, who is a model and a dietitian. I have two siblings, Kimball and Tuska.
That's great. Now, going back to your childhood, how were you as a child? Were you a little bit of a loner, maybe bookish?
I certainly wasn't a loner. I mean, at least not willingly. But I was certainly I was very bookish. I was reading all the time. I was either reading, working on my computer, reading comics, playing Dungeons and Dragons. I was basically that kind of kid. Basically, I was really fascinated by computers and technology that, in fact, I made my first game when I was 12, which was called Blastar.
That's great. Wow, that's amazing. So, by the age of 17, you wanted to leave South Africa and you wanted to move to the U.S. Well, why did you choose the United States specifically? Why not Europe or any other country?
Well, it's just that whenever I read about cool technology, I would tend to be in the it would tend to lead to the United States. I mean, so I wanted to be where the cutting edge technology was, and specifically in the United States, that was Silicon Valley. It's the heart of all these things. Although at the time I didn't really know where Silicon Valley was. I mean, I thought it was a mythical place, but I really wanted to come to the U.S. I tried to convince either my mother or my father, who were divorced at the time, but neither of them wanted to come. But fortunately, my mother was a Canadian citizen originally, so I was able to move to Canada. And then from there, I was able to get a scholarship in UPenn, and I moved there. That's how I came to the U.S. I majored in physics and business.
That's great. Now, how did you move from being the college student to becoming the CEO and entrepreneur of all
Well,
these
I always
companies?
thought about the world's problems, how to solve them. It started with X.com, which was basically a way to transfer money from one person to another without actually having to go to the bank. It was basically by the click of a button using the internet. I wanted to make sure to make it more convenient to people. I started the website and had a team, and we kept growing it until we had over 200,000 customers. But the website still had a few bugs. At the same time, PayPal was being created, and they also had sort of the same idea, but they were using their emails. So we sort of combined the forces, and I contacted them, and we combined the companies, and we formed the PayPal that's more well known now. Later, the company kept growing until it caught the attention of eBay, and eventually eBay bought it from us.
So I'm guessing after you sold eBay, you had enough money to retire. What made you go further into making all these innovations? Why didn't you just go to the beach and
Yes, it's not really the first time I was asked this question. Although I love the beach and I love helping humanity, and but I wanted to make sure this to help the humanity have a more spacefaring civilization. I began thinking about space and how we should be going to Mars. I mean, we went to the moon, but I always thought about how eventually we would have multiple bases on different planets. But the problem is that we were not doing anything. We weren't actually taking any steps for that. So I had this philanthropic idea where we would make a greenhouse on Mars. I worked on the idea of it. I even went to Russia twice. Met some questionable people there. I tried to get the rockets. I tried to get everything ready, but my biggest problem was actually getting the rocket. The cheapest rocket in the U.S. was, I think, then $50 million at least, and I needed two of them. So it was going to be really difficult to actually get these rockets. There was a lot of money to be funded. So I had an idea where I would make these rockets reusable. Now the problem is that every time NASA or any place which uses the rockets, they send it to space, they would have to burn the leftovers from the rockets because it cannot be really used again. So imagine after each time you take a cruise on a boat, you would have to burn the boat. That's certainly a lot of money. So I had this idea where after you send off the rocket, you can basically get it back to your bases and reuse it again. And that was how I started SpaceX. And then later I had another idea. In fact, that was my original idea when I first came to Silicon Valley, was to work on the electric vehicles, specifically electric vehicle energy storage technology. But I didn't really have the idea. I didn't know how to grasp that or how to improve on that. Back then, electric cars were really strict in California. And then eventually, when California sort of let loose these restrictions, two people came up with an idea that they can run a car on lithium batteries. GM did not really fund their ideas. They didn't really want to give them the money for these. They thought it's still because of the safety, and it had so many issues still. When I heard of them, I contacted them and I decided to co-found a company and fund their idea in order to make these cars real. And that was how also Tesla Motors came to a thing.
That's great. That's really wonderful. Now, based on some research, I found that you didn't want to become the CEO of Tesla Motors immediately. You sort of were the reluctant CEO. Why was that exactly?
I've been asked that question a couple of times before. I mean, it's true. I could have been the CEO immediately, but the problem was I was already the CEO of SpaceX, and I tried really hard not to become the CEO of two startups at the same time. It's certainly not appealing, and it shouldn't be appealing to anybody. It's really not a good idea. It's a terrible idea.
Of course. Well, with all these amazing accomplishments, no wonder you were known as the Iron Man of this current time. Now, moving back to your current life and plans, are you married? Do you have any children?
Well, yes, I actually have 5 children, twins and triplets. Their names are Griffin, Kai, Saxon, Damien, and Xavier. I also got married to Claire Boucher, and the project that I'm actually working on right now is to provide solar roofs for all over the US. So my basic idea was to create renewable energy using the solar power that's at low costs and getting solar energy to all the roofs and all over the houses. I'm confident eventually that hopefully in 10 years or so we will have solar energy will be the most used energy more than anything else.
Hopefully. Personally, I always looked up to you and have been looking forward to having a great opportunity to that. Do you have any advice for anyone out there who wants to be a CEO in the future?
Well, I'd always say you should pay attention to the negative feedback. I mean, from friends, from everyone, basically. As simple as this advice may be, a lot of people don't do it. It's really important to know the advice that's hidden in that feedback. Sometimes there are mistakes that people pick up that you sometimes wouldn't pick up or I wouldn't pick up. So it's good to listen to every feedback, positive or negative.
Well, being a computer science major myself, your theories and your patience and hope to help the world were always a way to inspire me and I'm sure many others. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being a great inspiration to our generation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to all the viewers. This was my dress up biography, and I hope you liked it. Any questions, comments, or concerns?